It's great to be here again. I think as was said, we've been trying to give you guys updates of what we've been doing with our technology, with our company, and we've been progressing in our company development quite a bit over these past couple of years. We've been able to go from showing prototypes, architectural views, and how we're going to apply the technology to where we're actually growing the company itself. At this event, we're going to show you what we've done in our latest phase in the development of the company. And we went production in GA with our product late last year and did a couple of upgrades since then. We'll give you some updates on that. And this time we're actually going to show some detailed customer cases. The last time that we spoke at this forum, we talked totally about media entertainment. It's an area for which our product is doing quite well and having some traction. We're going to show you some very specifics about it, plus 3 more verticals that we've been focused on. Our Salesforce team has been growing. Our company and our revenues have been growing. I won't be able to talk a whole lot about details considering we're still a small private company, but you guys will get the gist of the kind of successes that we've had in the past 6-7 months. All right. Quick reminder, who we are and what we're doing. A couple of familiar faces up there. My partners and close friends, David Flynn and Rick White, actually founded the company. I worked with them before at Fusion.io. Came in their early days with them. After the first couple of dozen folks, I came on board, and then we took that company, as most of you know, all the way to IPO and shot to the moon and established some new standards. But what's really interesting and most important was our experience from Fusion.io. When we put a reliable, extremely fast flash storage in the server, it started to change what that data center business model needed to look like. Having direct attached flash or direct attached storage, we had walked away from in the industry. We were centralizing it. It was shared storage. It was easier to manage. But we were short on a few things like performance and scalability within the data center environment itself. We took that experience, and that's how we applied it to primary data. And what you're going to see, sort of a more matured results of that in the kind of productization that we've done with our technology. When I joined the company, Steve Wozniak joined us. He's still the chief scientist, does a fair amount of public venues for us talking about our technology, and we enjoy his company at Primary Data. All right. I thought it would be most important to at least start off to say, what is in fact the problem? We get that question all the time. It boils down to something very simple. It's an approach in the compute industry, in compute and storage industry, that's been around in architecture for quite some time. And that's this fixed relationship between the computing device or the application and where its data resides in storage itself. But when we view it, we take a look at it from an applications point of view. It says, look, it's not storage aware. It has no idea if it's running on fast storage, slow storage, cheap storage, or storage that's not reliable. It is the IT, the experience, folks like the talents in this room, that thinks for the application when you guys are trying to figure out how am I going to do a deployment. How do I have to configure those servers? What type of servers? How much memory? What kind of storage? What kind of networking? How reliable I need to make it? And if it wasn't for this kind of talent, applications would have all types of failures. But in time they do, right? Over their life, they end up running into problems. They have either more demand that the application can actually support because there's some kind of bottleneck, or it changes and it's not doing much, but it's consuming valuable resources within the data center itself. We'll talk a bit about that, but we thought it was important to actually say what was the underlying problem that needs to be solved. Now, the impact is big, right? Most of the time, it's always about cost. It's always about how fast can you respond to business demands. We have a whole list here, right? We got cold data that's hogging up resources. If you don't know what's going to happen to an application and the needs for its data over its lifetime, you're probably going to over-provision for it. And I think everyone here will agree that if we deploy with nothing but flash storage, infinite amounts of memory, infinite amounts of CPU capacity, you probably will never run into a problem. But I also suspect that nobody's budget could actually afford to do that for every application you deploy. So it is a question about price performance and how do you do those trade-offs. If you do it wrong, then you get impacted in some form, whether it's trying to figure out how to move data, trying to figure out how to use new storage technologies, right? All these things are disruptive. All right, we'll play a little bit of game. So when I created this slide, I was thinking about what are some of the challenges that IT actually has. So I had to go think back. So when I was growing up, anyone who knows me, I'm a petrol head. I like cars, like fast cars. My dad got me into this, okay? So, I had a cheap car and I wanted to go modify it and so forth, but he told me there were some basic rules when I go and engage so I don't get disappointed. It's either how much money you spend, how much horsepower or performance you wanted, right? And how reliably you want to make it. Pick any two. So I thought about it, I was like, well, could I do the same thing here, right? So let's pick any two. The three things that I decided to focus on was cost and budgets. How much time do you have? It's usually never enough, right? I mean, the business folks want to get their application up and running. If there's a problem, they want it fixed overnight. This is why a lot of folks in IT get a phone call at 2 a.m. in the morning that something's gone wrong and they've got to figure out how to go fix it right away. Last one is how much resources, whether it be CPU resources or networking or storage resources or manpower, right, which is kind of the biggest limitation. What happens if you want to reduce your costs and save time? Well, what does that require? A lot more resources. Probably don't have them, right? If it's less time and less resources, then it's probably going to require a lot more budget. We have to spend more money on new CPUs or new servers, right? New software. If you want to keep your resources down and your costs down, well, there's only one last choice. It's more time. But I have a better way of thinking about it. In our team, when we sit down, we figure out where the benefits we bring, quite frankly, is how can you be more efficient? It's the price-performance argument. If you've got an application that has no idea what its resources and what options it has so that it can switch towards them and makes best use of it, then you're going to have to figure that out on your own. But you can only do so much. Once you do the deployment, you provision that application, its resources, you're done and going on to the next problem. Big enough data center, 100,000 apps later, I don't think you're really going to try and figure out how to tune one app out of 100,000. So you're probably going to put more than's needed, and it's costly. The primary data, we've spent a lot of time focused on one piece of our technology, and it is our Metadata Engine. And we came out pretty boldly at the beginning of this year to show you guys where we've been spending our time. We're not storage. We are a software solution, though. We are storage agnostic. We've done everything we can to make our technology scalable, fast, reliable, but to add intelligence into the infrastructure. It comes from our Metadata Engine. We collect telemetry and information about how clients, individual clients, are making use of their data. And we use that to learn what is the best decision to do in optimizing making your data center more efficient. In other words, not having to over-provision in any function whatsoever and to do it in real time. Another way of looking at it is machine learning. We take information over time as experience using objectives that have been given to us and making those decisions for IT live. So it allows us to move data without application interruption to either fix a performance problem or fix a cost of infrastructure problem. If there's cold data that's not being used for a couple of years, that's an easy decision to move. But what if that data is used once a year? Or what if it's used once every 6 months? That's not really that cold. You have to have the ability to move it out, to make some room for somebody else that's more important, and then move it back in, let's say if it's end of quarter, end of year, type of accounting crunching. There's some pain points now. We have talked about solutions that we now can create with this technology. We put some of these pain points together and I've summarized them here for you. Data migration. People will relate to that. Sometimes they'll call it storage migration, but it's going from old to new. But what about if I want to take data and move it from a medium performance store to a high performance? And not a full volume, maybe just a file at a time. If you want to do that, you can. You can do it all manually. Stop your app, copy the data over, reconfigure the app, power it back up again, and now you've got that optimization that you were looking for. What if it could be done automatically? Second one, cloud adoption. We hear this problem all the time. We see cloud being used in two different ways. One is, can you move everything up into the cloud? Your compute, your apps, everything. Well, that's not really happening yet today. What it is cheap and deep storage. But now you got to make a decision, what am I going to move up there? And am I just relegating it to an archival tier that I just sort of write it up there and forget, and maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, because of some compliance or some other issue that comes up, legal activity, that I've got to go get that data? But what if I told you it was just another tier that we would just treat as slow and cost effective? And to do these things in an automated fashion. Performance is always a question for everyone. We look at it as scaling out NAS in general. It doesn't have to be the same storage type, it could be from different vendors. What if, without any changes within your infrastructure, using exactly the same equipment that you have today, that we can make it faster? And lastly, those who are actually deploying a lot of VMware and vSpheres and a lot of VMs, you get the noisy neighbor problems, and you're trying to figure out how do I ensure quality of storage or service in storage for each individual VM. These are all very challenging things to do, but to do so without any proprietary equipment, from a single supplier vendor. We can do it against pretty much any one storage that they can bring into a data center.